looked like from there?
We didn't. We just drove out into the country,
Okay.
outside of Winterset, and found a high spot and looked at it. We had our binoculars, but you know, I think without a telescope. It was like, is that it? I think that's it. Well, it's 3:30, so let's get started on, as I said, our last meeting of the year. I'll call to order the Board of Waterworks Trustees for our monthly meeting. It's December 22nd, 2020, and it's 3:30 p.m. So the first thing on the agenda is the consent agenda, consisting of a number of minutes, financial statements, list of payments for November 2020, summary of the CEO approved expenditures in excess of $20,000, and the next meeting date. Does anyone wish to pull anything out of that consent agenda? Ted, do you have anything you want to draw to our attention specifically?
No, Diane, nothing in particular unless there are questions.
All right, with that, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions? And I apologize, I forgot to take roll. So I guess that this voting on the consent agenda will suffice for roll. So why don't you, Michelle, you go ahead and do that.
Okay, Ashburner,
Yes.
Bolton,
Yes.
Gillette,
Yes.
Hubbard,
Yes.
Moines.
Yes.
Thank you.
So number 2, the public comment period. I will open it to receive any comments from the public. Michelle, will you go through how you asked to make a statement?
Yes, if you go to the bottom to the participants tab next to your name, you should be able to use the raise hand feature. If I see a hand raised, we will call on you in no particular order. I was made aware that I think someone wanted to make comment. Perfect. Go ahead and unmute
Okay.
me.
Okay, we'll go ahead and recognize whoever it is and identify yourself, please.
It's Jeannie. Hello.
Hi, Jeannie.
Hi. I have 2 things to talk about. First, I just wanted, I know you're all aware that I'm going to be leaving. I just wanted to thank you all. I did watch the meeting last month, and Sue, I think the count is 4 CEOs we've been through. And Graham, I heard yours too. So, but I just want to thank all of you. Some of us have worked a lot closer than others, of course, but I won't say I've enjoyed it all, but you know, it's been okay. I'll miss doing it, kind of, sort of. And the other thing I wanted to talk about was I was going to put in some comments on the CEO job. What do you call that? Evaluation but Ted told me I couldn't or I'd get fired early. So just want to know I was thinking about it. So, but I just want to say thank you.
Jeannie, thank you. We're going to miss you. I hope you do something. Hope you do something fun.
I plan on it.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Jeannie, for your service and best of luck to you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Gigi, thank you for everything.
I'll let all the board go first, and then I will add that it was a pleasure to be the 4th CEO, Jeannie, that you worked with.
She finally chased one out.
That's right. That's right. One finally chased her out, Graham, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably more accurate.
But I will say this. We worked on a lot of things and we made a lot of things better. So thank you for your help with all of that.
Thank you, Ted. I appreciate it. Hope you get a big raise. or something like that. I don't know, donuts. I think we get
Yeah,
donuts, don't we?
Yeah. Anyone else? Anyone else who'd like to speak? Thanks, Jeannie.
Diane, this is Sue Hubbard. I would like to speak as a customer. I didn't know where exactly to insert this, so I think as a customer, it's the best way. Sue Hubbard, 3307 Southwest 24th, Des Moines, Iowa. I had an issue in that I had a plumber out, and he suggested that I call the city, not the waterworks, call the city regarding my stop box. And I said, don't you mean Des Moines Waterworks? So anyway, I was working from home one day and just Googled customer service. And of course, the first number that popped up in 48 font was a number that I thought looked familiar, and I called it, and it was Amy Kaler. And she said, well, I said, why are you answering the phone for customer service? And she said, because you called my direct number. So I think we found out that that might be something we would want to change. But anyway, in the course of this, I had a service call that was placed, and there was a young man that came out named Rob, and I don't know Rob's last name, but he was phenomenal. I mean, he was everything you would want in someone that would work for Des Moines Waterworks. He was professional. He was direct. He gave me very clear advice and direction. I even tried to reward him after he was done with our family recipe of Chex Mix, and he wouldn't take it. He said, you know, I can't do that. That's, you know, I cannot take any kind of reimbursement. And he was an absolute delight. And I was so proud of him and of Des Moines Waterworks. And I think he treats every customer the same. It was kind of cute because he was obviously thinking of me like he would his parents, and he kept relating the issue I was having to the same thing his dad had had, and I shouldn't feel bad because his dad had the same issue. He was just a total delight. So as a customer of Des Moines Waterworks, I just wanted to say thank you, Rob. Thank you, Amy, for picking up the call. And I was just so proud of the service that we delivered. Thanks, Diane.
Well, and I think that Amy's number should stay there, you know. If anyone asks, that's what I would say.
All right, do we have any other public comments? I don't see any other hands raised.
I think Diane might be frozen.
Oh, I thought maybe it was me.
No, I don't.
She looks frozen.
Yeah.
Why don't we go ahead if she tries to reconnect, and I'll just move into action item 3A, acceptance. Is that all right with you, Ted?
Absolutely, Sue. I think that's appropriate.
Okay, acceptance of the 2020 Des Moines Water Main Replacement. Tell us about this, Ted.
Sue, this is contract one of our Des Moines main replacement. I think we only had one contract, frankly, that we did in Des Moines this year. We had a lot of work that we did on city projects that was included in their projects, but this, I believe, is the one contract that we bid. And this was actually on Walnut Street under a railroad track. We had a water main break that we weren't able to repair with our own folks, as I recall. And so we opted to, instead of trying to dig up the railroad tracks, install new water main under the tracks to replace that existing main that had broken. It's a fairly simple, straightforward contract, other than, of course, we had a bore under the tracks. There was one change order in the contract to add some additional, an additional 59 feet of casing based on field conditions, about $25,000. The final contract price, even with that change order, ended up actually being less, a little bit less than the bid, just because of other quantities that changed based on field conditions. So the final project cost was just over $199,000. So the project is complete, and staff would recommend that the board accept this project.
I apologize. I got kicked off of Zoom, but I'm back, and I assume that Sue as vice chair jumped right in and took over. I will say it's been happening to me, so if it happens again, Sue, you are more than welcome to move us through the agenda, and I'll come back in when I can. Do we have a motion?
So
Not
moved.
yet. Oops.
I'll move, what's the language? I'll move to accept the 2020 Des Moines Waterworks main replacement contract one completed by, is it Rognus? Is that appropriate?
Rognus, yes.
Rognus Corporation in the amount of $199,831.10.
Second.
Are there any questions for Ted? Hearing none, it's been moved and seconded. Michelle, will you take the roll call vote?
Ashburn,
Yes.
Bolton,
Yes.
Gillette,
Yes.
Hubbard,
Yes,
Moines.
Yes.
Thank you.
Item 3B is authorization to solicit bids for the 2021 tank painting. Let's get a motion and then, well, Ted, why don't you take us through it?
Yes, Diane, this is we're requesting authorization to paint 2 tanks. One of them is here in Des Moines, what is known at Des Moines Waterworks as the Wilczynski standpipe, which is located on East Pleasant. Over in the vicinity of East 14th and Park is probably the more well-known intersection there. There's a standpipe there that needs to be repainted. And then the second standpipe, or the second tank, is the tower in Pleasant Hill, the elevated tower that is owned by Pleasant Hill and of course will be paid for by Pleasant Hill. You will recall, the board will recall that we did talk a little bit about the Wilczynski standpipe, specifically in the repainting. The color that the tank is currently is no longer readily available, and instead of paying the additional cost, we decided to do a little bit of a change there. We did go to the neighborhood associations and visited with them, and got some feedback there, and everyone is fine with changing that color from powder blue to cumulus, which is kind of a whiter gray color. Pleasant Hill is also changing the color of their tower from what it is today. I don't know the name of that color, but it's kind of a two-tone. They've got the stem is one color and the bowl is another. And then they also have a logo on their tower, and they will be putting the logo back on. We did have a little bit of discussion at planning about logoing our tower. That's something we have not historically done, primarily just because of the cost, and that is not in this project. But we are planning to paint these 2 tanks, one in the spring and one in the fall in 2021.
Can I have a motion to authorize staff to solicit bids for 2021 tank painting Pleasant Hill and Wilczynski standpipe project, and establish the date of public hearing as the date of January 2021 board meeting, and direct staff to publish notice as provided by law?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there questions for Ted? I have a question, and that is, what is the genesis of the name Chinosky?
Norman Wilczynski was an early board member on the Waterworks board, if I'm not mistaken. All of the towers in town in Des Moines have someone's name associated with them. The one at Merle Hay is Tenney, named after M.K. Tenney, who I believe was a general manager. Don't quote me on their positions, but Wilczynski was a was a board member. Henry Nolan was a board member. That's the East 25th and Hull Tower. And Alan Hazen is the one on Hickman, 48th and Hickman, about the tower. And he was actually a design engineer who designed that tank and then died during the construction of the tank. And so they named it after him. But they all have names related to some historical waterworks figure.
Ted, I was glad to hear the neighborhood association was consulted about this, and I encourage your staff to continue doing that.
Indeed, thank you, Joel.
Anything else? It's been moved and seconded. Michelle, we're ready for the roll call vote.
Ashburner,
Yes.
Bolton,
Yes.
Gillette,
Yes.
Hubbard,
Yes,
Muns.
Yes.
Thank you.
The next item is 3C, permission to establish a date of public hearing for Mid-American Energy Company underground gas easement amendment.
Yes,
Ted?
yes, Diane, we have a natural gas pipeline that crosses through Waterworks Park. It comes north on 30th Street. And then when it gets to George Flagg Parkway, it takes a little bit of an angle to the northwest and goes across George Flagg, under the Raccoon River. And once it gets across the Raccoon River, then it kind of straightens out again and goes north in line with about what is 31st Street north of the railroad tracks. The drawings that we have from the 1950s when the easement was originally established don't show exactly where the pipeline goes once it leaves our property to the north, but it's 30th and then across the river and then in line with what would be 31st Street to the north. That main has been there, that gas line has been there for many, many, many years, since 1951, obviously. At this point, the gas line is exposed in the riverbank on the north side of the river. And so Mid-Am would like to relocate that main, and they need a little bit of an update in the easement to facilitate relocating that main, replacing it essentially under the river so that it will not be at risk of damage. We are finalizing an amendment to the agreement with Mid-Am, and we would ask that the board establish a public hearing for January 2021 board meeting where we will ask the board to approve that amendment.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to establish the date of the January 2021 board meeting as the date of public hearing for Mid-American Energy Company easement attachment?
So moved.
second,
Any questions? It's been moved and seconded. Michelle, take the roll call vote.
Ashburner,
Yes.
Bolton,
Yes.
Gillette,
Yes.
Hubbard,
yes,
Muns.
Yes. So the next agenda item is the performance and evaluation and salary increase for the CEO and general manager. Sue and I have performed this performance review with Ted. The other board members were invited to submit comments and anything that they wanted brought up. Those will be provided to Ted. In addition, it was recommended that the comments that we received from a number of groups during the hiring process be included in Ted's personnel file during this period, and that will be done. So with that, and following the review, and in accordance with the contract, it's recommended to the board that Ted receive the amount equal to the average percentage increase of the bargaining unit employees for the corresponding year for this year. And Doug has calculated that amount to be 3.51%. It was felt that in light of the salary adjustments that were made during the hiring process, that the salary increase would be limited to an amount equal to the bargaining unit employees for this year. So I don't know if there is any action that needs to be taken given the recommendation. But with that, I guess I'll open it up for remarks. Well, there was one other thing I wanted to say, and that is next year during the performance evaluation period, which is set out in the contract, I asked Doug, and he said that we really had not had a formal process. Looked like since 2006, and maybe next time we think about doing a self-evaluation, getting evaluations from board members and senior staff, and do some goal setting. This year has been a little different given that the intense scrutiny that was given to the position and to Ted during his hiring process. But I hope we can in the future be a little more formalized in how to do this.
Ted, I'd like to, or Diane, I'd like to comment briefly. Ted, as we talked during the last little while and during the pandemic, I was impressed by the way you handled the tense times and got us through to where we are today. I think what you've shown to me in the first few months since you've had the position permanently is a willingness to listen and to seek advice and input from others. And I encourage you to keep doing so. You're a better leader when you do that. I appreciate it as a board member, not only that you call me, that doesn't make, I'm only one board member, but I can tell that you've talked to a lot of other people, including the union and the other employees at Des Moines Waterworks and people in the community. And as long as you keep doing that, I think you're going to do the job to the best of your ability.
Thank you, Graham.
Anything else? I'm not sure, since we didn't make a recommendation for any amount in addition to the bargaining unit increase, that we need a motion.
I would,
if anyone feels
quick comments, Diane, and well said, Graham. I would echo all of that. I have appreciated Ted's communication and his thoughtfulness and his strategic thinking. A lot of the issues we've faced. I think he's been a admirable manager of our organization, a good steward of our resources, and a great ambassador for our mission. And I know, coming in, one of the questions we had was, Ted, or someone who's been involved in operations for so long and day-to-day issues, are you going to be able to step back and take on bigger picture issues? And we have no shortage of big picture issues, and Ted has been all over them. And so I've been really impressed by that. So well done, and looking forward to continue working with you.
Thank you, Joel.
I will quickly echo and support what Graham and Joel have said, and also what Diane commented on earlier. I believe one of the best ways to help you in this position is to be able to give you that opportunity to receive feedback from us and your peers, and support kind of formalizing this process, so that way you can have that feedback and know how to move forward and continue to grow and do your job well. But thank you so far for all of the work that you've done tremendously well.
Thank you.
All right. As I've said to Ted many times, in managing people, there should never be any surprises during a performance review of things that have not been said before, or that they were not aware of. And I want to echo what everybody else says. When I came into the job of chair 2 years ago, I'm not sure that I was prepared for all of the changes and the tremendous number of challenges that have come about. I can say that Ted's been terrific to work with. We've spent a lot of time together, and I really appreciate the amount of time that you put into that board relationship. So thank you for that. And with that, I'll close out this item.
Diane, if I might just say one quick thing, and that is
Sure.
Thank you for the opportunity. I do really appreciate the board putting its faith and trust in me, and the level of engagement of this board is amazing. To a person on this board, everyone is engaged and caring about our mission, and I appreciate that. It makes my job easier. So thank you.
Okay. The next agenda item is the election of chairperson and vice chairperson for 2021 to 2022. So let me see if I can find. And I don't know that, I think that Doug wrote something up on, no, I don't think we have anything written on this. So I will, we did not have a nominating committee. So I will open the floor for nominations for chairperson and vice chair for this period of time. Andrea?
Yes. I'm looking for my mute button and my so I would nominate Graham. Are you looking for a specific motion at this time or just a discussion?
No, let's get a motion, and then if we need to have discussion, we can.
So I would nominate Graham as our chair. And then propose a split on the vice chair, with Diane serving as vice chair for I don't know if we have confirmed a specific amount of time. We'll start at 6 months, and then is it fair for me to nominate myself as vice chair?
I think it's not only fair, Andrea, but I think if you're willing to do it, that's wonderful. And from what I understand, the reason for this is because we want to make sure that we see the regionalization effort through, and Diane has been so involved in that. Graham, as we look ahead to what we need to do, no one's better at the whole PR side of the thing, side of the house than you are. And we have a lot of communication that we're going to have to do to our customers. And I think having you as the chair, I support the nomination. I think, you are so good with the press. You're so good in positioning messaging. And I think we're really going to need it, because this is a complicated thing when we look at regionalization. We're going to need someone, if this board accepts the work that we are doing and decides to move ahead with that, to get the word out to all of our customers as to why this is good for the utility. So I appreciate both of you willing to do that, and Diane, you staying on and helping us see this through on regionalization.
I think
So
we
is
need
that-
a second.
Yeah, I was going to ask if Sue's was the second.
That is a second. That's a strong
Oh.
second.
Okay.
So just to be clear, the motion is that Diane would serve as vice chair through the end of June. Am I understanding that correctly?
That's my current motion. That would put us at June. Hopefully that would get us through regionalization, allow her to still continue to take the lead on that. Go from there.
Great. Well, let me just say that that I'm honored to do this. I have enjoyed my service on Des Moines Waterworks greatly. If I haven't said that enough, I want to say that this is valuable community service that I enjoy doing, and I get a lot out of in the fact of satisfaction. And I have shared with Ted, I've shared with employees, I've shared with the union representatives and others at Des Moines Waterworks that we are fortunate to have such a fine group of people that work for Des Moines Waterworks and board members that serve Des Moines Waterworks, that it makes this service easy. I look forward to doing this. We have, as Diane has alluded to earlier, over the last 2 years, we've been through a lot. We have a full agenda ahead of us. And I look forward to working with you to get that done. The one thing that we'll discuss in January, or that we'll formalize in January, is the committee assignments. I didn't think it was appropriate to do that until after we had this election. And so we can discuss that a little bit in January, but I appreciate and I'm honored by the trust that you would put in me to have me serve as chair.
Thank you, Graham, and I look forward to it. I am hoping that we can move through and have some kind of idea on what we're doing on regionalization by the middle of next year, and am happy to provide that continuity through then. I have expressed to many of you that I do think that change in leadership is positive for an organization, that sharing of the opportunity for leadership. So I am eager when we have the regionalization issue brought to fruition to step aside and let someone else learn the ropes of doing this. I was going to say I've enjoyed my last 2 years as chair, but I'm not sure enjoyed is the word that I was looking for. It's been extremely challenging, but the relationships and the opportunity to work with the really good people, both on this board and the staff of the waterworks, has been really a very good time in my life to have that opportunity. I very much believe in public service, so I enjoy the opportunity to serve and to lead. So good luck to you, Graham. I'm going to be pleased to turn the gavel over to you and have you lead these meetings.
I'll add briefly, I think this is a great plan, and I think Graham's experience and skills will serve us well. And so I'm excited about that. And thank you to Diane for her service, and to Sue as well. And I think Diane's service and Andrea's moving forward will serve us well also. So full speed ahead.
All right, with that, I will call the vote. And Michelle, you want to take?
Ashburner,
Yes.
Bolton,
Yes.
Gillette,
Yes.
Hubbard,
Yes.
Muns.
Yes. Information items, we'll run through these quickly. Anything additional from planning, Andrea?
Kind of similarly with every month, everybody from the board's usually on those meetings, so I don't know if I have anything new or different to report out.
Okay, thank you. Finance and audit. It was canceled this month, correct?
That's right. Yes.
Customer relations, Sue.
I want to thank everyone for being part of the large regional convening, having all of our board members on there. That was great. You know where we are. You're all up to speed. We have meetings scheduled. We're continuing to hear back from the legal counsel, and that would be Eric Bollert, and he has been engaged by West Des Moines Waterworks to come up with the exact language that we talked about for the 28F to make the regional entity able to bond and have the ability to go out and get some money. So with that, I think you're all up to speed. We'll continue. I would like to continue to work on this committee and see it through with Diane, if that is the pleasure of the board.
Ed, I believe it was last week, there were still some questions about the language of that 28F amendment. Has that been sorted out at all?
I would say it has not been completely sorted out, Joel. We did get some suggested language from Eric Bollert. I had a conversation with Rick Malm about some questions that raised in my mind, specifically about 388, which is the chapter of the code under which we are assembled, not being mentioned in the proposed edit. I think Rick has had a conversation with Eric subsequent to that, and they're looking closely at that language to see just exactly what is going to be required. I don't have any final word, and I don't know if Rick, you have anything beyond that to offer.
I don't. I haven't talked to Eric since I sent him some additional information. I think at this point, there's simply a discussion about what, if anything, is needed. So.
Sounds good. I'm not losing sleep over it at the moment, but I know we have time.
Yeah, I would say, Joel, that I think what he originally provided us probably isn't what we want to forward to our friends who may take that to the Hill. I think we want to make sure we get it right before we start passing it around.
Sounds good. Thank you.
I think Diane is frozen again, so I'm just going to proceed on. I don't have anything to report with the Bill Stowe Memorial Committee. The Greater Des Moines Botanical Garden, I think I've mentioned before, is in the process of searching for a CEO. The search firm is currently recruiting candidates. It remains the goal of the Botanical Garden to have the CEO in place by the end of March, which is still ambitious, but I think we can hit that target. Mary Sellers continues in the position as interim CEO, which is, those of you who know Mary, the Botanical Garden couldn't be served any better than by somebody like Mary Sellers. She's not interested in doing the job permanently, so she's not a candidate for the permanent role, but we're well served by her. One thing that I will put out there as we think about committee assignments, I have been the representative of the Botanical Garden Board. I would be willing and am interested in continuing in that position. I serve on the search committee and am chair of the strategic planning committee for the Botanical Garden. However, if there is a board member who is interested in serving on in that role, let me know and we can make a change there. But I am willing and interested to stay in that position. But as I say, I'm not going to fight anybody for it. If somebody's really interested and would like to do it, you're welcome to. And I think at some point, a new representative from our side from our board would make sense. So I just put that out there.
That may be a thing, Graham, like the vice chair thing, that you would continue in your service to that until you finish those things that you mentioned.
That might make a lot of sense. And as I say, I thoroughly enjoy being on that board, but again, I don't think it's wise for anybody to serve in a position too long. So that's a good point, Diane.
Okay. The foundation board, anything additional, Andrea?
No, not at this time. I will, however, make a plug for their end of the year donation or contribution opportunities with buying a ring or a bench or some of the other items that you can see in their notes. I think that 2021 will be a year where we will have a lot more to talk about with their programming and some other items related to getting out of this pandemic.
Thank you. Okay, Ted, staff updates.
Yes, Diane, first, we're going to have an update from Jen, who's been doing a lot of work on external affairs. Share a few things with us.
Thanks, Ted, and thank you for allowing some time to update you. Can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. I have 3 brief areas that I'll cover today. The first one is legislative. So the state legislative session convenes on January 11th and adjourns on April 20th. We have now hosted 2 meetings, Zoom meetings. One was with the Republican caucus that's from our service area, and one was with the Democratic caucus from our service area. So Ted did a brief presentation about water quality issues as well as regionalization update. And there were a handful of legislators on each call, and I think that it was about what we expected, and that's good. And we had some good questions, mostly about regionalization rather than water quality. So we followed up with some talking points and key points for them. We're scheduling one-on-one meetings in January with leadership of the House and Senate who don't live in our service area, just so in case they're on a committee that could affect some of our issues, that they would know us and be introduced to Ted. Also, you already mentioned the 28F funding fixes in the code that Sue is, and all of you are helping work on with our partners. So that's on my radar as well in case we need to do any work on that. In terms of the federal level, we are working on scheduling individual meetings with our congressional delegation, which will be fun. I think we may have Senator Grassley already scheduled, and then we're working on the rest of our delegation. I want them to be introduced to Ted and have a good understanding of our mission and our challenges, and also to speak with them about our FEMA claim, as well as just a PFAS sort of update on what's happening there with how you get your, get your area assessed and what that's going to look like in terms of could we get moved up on the list for an assessment or get some funding to help with monitoring or that sort of thing. So these meetings are just sort of a relationship building meeting, let them know kind of what our challenges are and if there's anything they can help us with or we can help them. The second area I'd like to cover is outreach for water quality collaboration. So I didn't do a check today, but I think that we are up to about 47 or 8 organizations that we've met with over the past 8 weeks. In December, we met with 8 new groups, which was really an interesting mix. We met with People's Land Management, Capital Crossroads regarding their soil and water task force, and is there any way we could possibly rejuvenate that? We met with the Nature Conservancy and Practical Farmers of Iowa, so that's a nice mix. I'm excited, and I think Ted is too. I won't speak for him, but I think that there are some really interesting projects in terms of urban non-operator landowners who live in our service area. They drink our water and they own farm properties up in the Des Moines and Raccoon River watersheds. And so I think it'll be fun to partner with some of the people that I've been mentioning on outreach to them, just so they understand that they can have an effect on the very water that they drink. So that's kind of fun. We're also working with Polk County on the idea of maybe a model drainage district project so that we could pick a drainage district here in Polk County and work with Practical Farmers and Polk County and some others, maybe, I don't know, Iowa soybean, see if we can get one drainage district to do all of the most wonderful conservation practices for water quality and then see what those outcomes are after 4 or 5 years. So those are the sorts of things that we're talking about with possible partners. And then the last area I would hit on, I'm calling hot topics. So in terms of strategic planning, we'll be sending out an RFP to the 3 finalists for the consulting firms early in January. And so that will kick off that process. There's an internal selection team that will be reviewing those proposals as they come in and making that decision, I think in February. And so those initial meetings for the strategic planning process will start in April. That's the tentative timeline. We did some rapid response thanks to Melissa Walker and Laura Sarcone and some others, Ted and the organization. There was an article about lead in drinking water, and so everybody banded together to get some talking points together in case we had inquiries. I don't believe we have. We also worked on regionalization, talking points, and strategy for communication with our partners. And we also have been working on any talking points we might need for the arguments for the ICCI Food and Water Watch lawsuit. I don't believe we had any inquiries about that either. We are renewing our contract with Melissa Walker for a public affairs consulting next year. So that's exciting. She wants to keep working with us and we want to keep working with her. So that's good. And then we're finalizing our strategic communications plan for 2021, which is going to be a utility-wide comprehensive plan that just draws upon a uniform approach to messaging and branding for our organization. And the strategic plan will inform that communications plan, so it will be somewhat fluid, but that's pretty exciting. And a tip of the hat to Melissa for helping us lead that charge on the communications plan. Those are the topics that I was going to cover today, and I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Jen, I've got one comment and kind of looking forward, and I have not spoken to Andrea about this, so she'll be surprised maybe, I don't know. But, you know, the fact that Andrea is going to be moving into the vice chair role mid-year and because of her expertise, I want to make sure that that I would like to have Andrea kind of take the lead on a lot of these legislative type of matters because she knows a lot more about that area than I do because of her day-to-day work and her experience. And so I think you and Ted and I and maybe Andrew will have a meeting in January, but I want to put it out there for the board and everybody else. I really want to call on Andrea and to work closely with you, Jen, on moving forward this agenda. I appreciate how aggressive the agenda is that you've set for us, and you're pushing us pretty hard, and keep doing that.
Should I thank Andrea in advance then, or should I let her respond first?
Didn't you like how I tricked her into doing this? I didn't even talk to her about it.
Yeah.
You know, I think it sounds great. Happy to do it.
Awesome, that's great. Because yeah, I had in my notes, I glossed over it, but we are definitely wanting to include some of the board members on some of these meetings if you're up for it. So that would be great, Andrea. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Jennifer, this all sounds great, and thank you again for preparing talking points on the regionalization meeting. I think those will benefit us moving forward just as we think and talk about that effort. Looking at the 2021 communications plan, have we given any thought to editorial board meetings or other media outreach as it relates to regionalization? I'm sure we have, and I don't expect an exact answer here now. I guess I'm just kind of planting the seed, something to think about for next year.
Yeah, thanks, Joel. That will be part, and I'm going to let Melissa jump in if she wants to here for a minute too. She has been the main architect of a lot of that communication plan, and she also, another tip of the hat to her help with the regionalization strategy and talking points. She was really helpful with that. She's putting together an editorial calendar for next year, which will work in throughout the entire year, all the things that are happening, whether it's Imagine a Day Without Water and what kind of social media and what kind of press releases. And then once we, we're in constant contact with Ted about what's going on with regionalization, she'll be really working closely with us on saying what we need to say at the right time to the right people with the appropriate messenger. So she's a really big help there. Melissa, did you want to add a couple things?
Thank you, Jen, for your comments. Joel, thanks for your question. When it comes to regionalization, Joel, yes,
We will eventually be reaching out and asking for some meetings with key reporters, editorial boards of different media outlets in Central Iowa, even a little bit further outside of Central Iowa possibly. But within the communications plan, one of the goals and initiatives that I've suggested is to really nurture relationships with key media individuals and introducing TED to editorial boards and some of the media here in the Des Moines area who might not be familiar with him, so that he can build that relationship, we can build that relationship. So when there is an issue, whether it be regionalization or the lead issue that came up, they know they can come directly to TED, to Des Moines Waterworks, and get the information that they need right away.
Joel, I'll add, you bring up a good point when we talk about thinking about regionalization and that sort of thing. You know as well as I do, we don't necessarily want to speak until we have something to say. But as Melissa is doing, and we're grateful for that, laying out, anticipating when it's time to speak is going to be smart. And while I'm volunteering people to do things without asking, I'll do the same for Joel, Melissa, and Jen that I did with Andrea. We need to rely on Joel's past life experience as much as his current life experience. And so I think we should kind of see him as a good board point of contact when it comes to things, public communication.
I'll thank you in advance too then, Joel. Thank you.
Happy to be voluntold and happy to help.
Great.
Other questions for Jen?
Yeah, I had a question. Jen, you said that in the meetings with legislators that they had some questions about regionalization. What kinds of questions? Were they just general, what's going on with it?
Yeah, it was pretty much what's going on with it. And I think, as I recall, one of the legislators was from Des Moines. And so I think, as I recall, her question was sort of like what, from a Des Moines perspective. So we sent out talking points that were appropriate for all audiences to be shared widely across the metro. So I think they're pretty much general issues that, that talks are continuing.
Thank you. Any other questions? Ted, Fluor Drive median maintenance?
Yes. Before I go to that though, Diane, if I might, I just want to compliment Jen and Melissa. They've both been working really hard here of late. The strategic communication plan that they put together is pretty impressive. I think you'll appreciate the recommendations that Melissa has made in there. Some of them related to social media make me nervous because I'm old, but I think it's probably the right things to do. And we do intend to share that with the board. We have asked Graham, and he has graciously agreed to review that with us before we bring it to the whole board because of his life experience and the things that he does related to communication. So everybody's volunteering for things today, which is fantastic. Just another example of this board's commitment. So thank you to all of you who are doing so much. And then yes, the next item on the agenda is Fluor Drive median update. And I think you will all recall that this year we did decide that we would contract out the maintenance on Fluor Drive for a number of reasons that I won't go through right now unless there are questions. But we also at that time asked Jessica Barnett, who's our ground supervisor, who you all know, to give us about a quarterly update. And so it seemed appropriate here as we end the year for her to give us a quick update on how that all went and what we're looking forward to next year. So Jessica.
All right, let me get my presentation up. Can everybody see it okay? All right.
Yes.
I'm going to start. It's been several months since I've given an update, so I wanted to walk you through. We've had several plantings that have taken place. On September 12th, we put in the fall display. It started out as kind of a rainy day, pretty dreary and wet, but the contractor worked through it. They installed around 3,000 fall plants, including mums, millets, ornamental cabbage, Swiss chard in a variety of mum colors. And then that stayed in for about a month and a half. And then on November 7th, which was a Saturday, the fall tulips went in. And it was kind of a different atmosphere. Usually it's cold in early November and snow's flying. We see snowflakes. It was almost 70 degrees the day they put these bulbs in. They got very lucky to install them, I would say, with that warmer weather. But again, it was very successful. I have a couple pictures here just to give you the magnitude of how many bulbs go in. They planted the last 6 medians, which is from Walgreens South to the airport, and they installed 35,000 bulbs. So that's really only, you know, a little over a third of the medians. We usually put in for the whole stretch about 100,000 tulip bulbs each fall, but went very well. They used a mini backhoe to install them. We do not plant them by hand. Makes it go a lot quicker. But all in all, to review the 2020 FLUR maintenance, it was very successful. I was very pleased on how things went. We had no injuries or accidents in the work zones. Really no public comments. I don't even think I got a phone call over this spring and summer and fall. The contractor, I'll do it, did a very nice job keeping up on the weed control. They did weekly inspections for weeding. They were out there watering on a weekly basis, but they compiled a lot of their major work to Saturdays to get out of the, when there was reduced traffic levels, to get out of everybody's way, basically. But I met with I'll Do It in early December just to kind of sit down and review the maintenance season. They were very pleased how it went, but did suggest, you know, they can do better and plan to do better to top their performance this year. They made a profit. We stayed within our budget. So those are all positives. And I look forward to what next year brings. Just a reminder, there'll be new plantings going in medians 1 through 4, which are the first 4 medians at the north end right here in front of Waterworks Park. We will be having irrigation installed in those, as well as the new plantings. And that work should begin this coming spring, March or April is what the city's planning on. So that's kind of an update, year-end review. Does anybody have any questions?
I just have one, and this might be more for you, Ted. Remind me, is our agreement with the city to maintain these medians, does that have a time limit on it, or is that just something that is open-ended?
You know, Graham, it's part of a 28E agreement that includes some other things. And I think there's a time limit, but I think it's out a ways. I will follow up on that and I can get back to you.
Yeah, you know, I don't know if anybody else wants it. At some point, why don't you send me the 28E? I think I've asked you questions about that before, and maybe it's better if I just get a copy of it and look at it.
Yeah, it's I'll send it to you. It's been in the pilot agreement and out of the pilot agreement. It's kind of transitioned over time, but I will take a look and get you more info.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, if there aren't any other questions for Jessica, I will say thank you, Jessica. I also want to mention, just coincidentally, I talked to Ben Page today. He's the City Park and Rec Director, and we talked about a number of things, but one of the things he talked about or wanted to share with me was their planning for Fleur Drive and all of the reconstruction and everything that's going on in the medians with the irrigation and the new soil and the new plantings and what's going to be appropriate and how it's going to go. And Jessica, he couldn't say enough nice things about you and how valuable your assistance has been. And I think the way he phrased it was, you know, you are leading the consultant down the right path to make sure we get the right thing for the city of Des Moines and for our residents and for Des Moines Waterworks, that we can maintain it and keep up. And he's extremely complimentary. So thank you for your efforts there. And thank you for your efforts managing this project. All good work.
Ted, just don't let Ben steal her. We want Jessica.
Yeah, well, that will be a goal, Sue,
Yeah.
for sure.
Oh, okay. CEO and general manager comments.
Yes, a couple of things from me tonight. First of all, in terms of our COVID response or COVID update, I shared with you last month that the main office did close on the 18th of November. It remains closed today. Normal collection practices are still in process. We really haven't had any challenges with that because we've made it possible for folks to just drop cash off in the drop box, and we're picking it up, and they've got some options that will allow them to pay. And frankly, a lot of people just learned to pay online during the pandemic and when we were closed. So that continues to be the case with the office closed, but it really isn't creating a lot of problems, at least not that I've heard. We still have some folks working from home in rotation. We have some folks taking vehicles home, all in an effort to sort of reduce the number of staff in the building, reduce the number of staff in the garage areas at any one time, and just maintain that appropriate separation and social distancing. To date, we have had 15 employees out of 210 who have tested positive throughout the period of the pandemic. Right now, today, we have one who is still off and home because of sickness, and we have one who is off and working from home due to an exposure, a family member. So considering we're this far in and we only have 2 people who are currently impacted, I think we're in a great place, and I'm really proud of how seriously our folks have taken this. A little bit of an update, and I shared some of this with you, some of you already, related to vaccinations, but the CDC has guidelines on when and who can be vaccinated. I think this week, I think I told you all we were in 1B, and I think this week CDC moved us to 1C, which we don't even know what 1B meant for sure in terms of the calendar, but it keeps moving around. It's going to be weeks likely before we have vaccinations available to our folks as frontline workers or critical infrastructure. But once that those vaccinations are available to us as Des Moines Waterworks, we will facilitate that, make it available to our staff, coordinate that so they can receive them as easily and as quickly as possible. But as I think I've shared with each of you, I'm not intending to at this point require employees to be vaccinated. At least that's our current thinking. So that's kind of the COVID update. Not a lot has changed other than that since in the last 2 or 3 or 4 months. Unless you have questions, can move on.
Any questions about those topics? The COVID response?
I did want to touch on a couple of things before we hop into the goals update. Specifically, I wanted to touch on injuries. That is one of our goals, but I also just wanted to share a little bit more. Last month, I reported that we had 7 listed on the agenda for the meeting, but we'd already had 2 additional at that time, which took us to 9, and that's where we stand today. We've had a total of 9 recordable injuries for the year, unfortunately. Had a rough couple of months in November and December with 2 recordable injuries in each of those months. Until that, we were basically on track to meet our goal, but unfortunately, that's not how we ended. I want to give you a quick retirement update. The last time we met as a full board, we had 8 folks who had signed the paperwork and announced their retirement. We're now up to 13 folks who have signed their paperwork and will be retiring in this season, I'm going to call it. We had 1 in October, 1 here in December, then we have 8 in January, 2 in March, and 1 in April. So a couple of them are a ways out, and we really do appreciate employees letting us know and giving us that notice so we can plan. But 13 people retiring in the space of 3 or 4 months is a lot, and it's a big impact. And Doug Garnett and his staff are going to be busy trying to catch all the dominoes as they fall and get them filled, those positions filled. And then lastly, I would touch on our customer information system upgrade. We talked a little bit about that last month. We did in fact have a customer who commented during public comment that he had some challenges. The implementation continues to move along. It's going well. but we're experiencing the kind of challenges you always experience in the first month of a major implementation like this. Still a lot of calls on a daily basis. I would say from what I hear, not as many as we had the first week, but the good news is that the CSRs are able to help them when they call, and they're able to solve their or answer their questions and get them logged in or get their account set up or whatever the case may be. So Amy and her folks are doing great work. They feel like it's moving in the right direction. And once everybody's been through it one time in this first month, it should settle out and hopefully stabilize. There have been some challenges in the field too with the new work orders, the new work order system, but nothing unexpected or cause for concern is what I guess I would say. And then lastly, for me, I would just like to review our utility goals and where we ended the year or where we anticipate ending the year next week on the 4 utility goals. The first goal was related to the customer information system and having that launch by 11:30, which we launched on 11:30. So in spite of the challenges that they're having, it's a system that they're excited about. And I think we can start to see the light at the end of the tunnel. It's been a monumental effort by customer service staff, Amy and her folks, the IT staff, Pat Bruner and his folks, even the finance staff, Peggy and her folks. And then pretty much everyone in the utility is touched by it to some degree, but we did get it launched as anticipated or as stated in the goal, and we were able to meet that goal. We had a goal related to the lead water service lines, and that's I'm going to say that as the goal is written, we didn't meet it, but a big part of that is because EPA did not release the lead and copper rule update as they had indicated they would. So we didn't really know what to do. We've listed it as not on track. Usually we list them as either they were met or not met. This has just been sort of an interesting mix of effort and waiting, and we're still waiting and hopeful that they will issue the rule sometime early in 2021, and we can finish doing that. We have done a lot of work on our inventory of lead service lines, trying to understand where we do or might have lead service lines. Talked quite a little bit about public communication. Melissa has worked with us on some outreach that's going into customer newsletter here in the coming month. And so we've done a lot of work, but as stated, COVID interfered, I'm going to say, and we're not exactly on track with that one. Wholesale rate design was the third goal. You know, our goal was to have a new proposal for our wholesale rate structure by at the end of November. We did have a new proposal, and in fact, as you all know, we did start down the path of that new rate structure by implementing a 15% rate increase on wholesale with projected comparable increases the next 2 years, and the intention to put a fixed fee in next year if we don't end up having a regional entity in place. So we did meet that goal in terms of having the new rate structure designed and implemented by 11/30, and it will be rolled out over the next 3 years in totality. And then lastly, our safety goal. The goal is very simple. It specifically relates to the number of recordable injuries. Our goal has been for the last several years to have half or fewer of the number, the industry standard, the industry average for water utilities our size. Industry average is about 12 for utility our size. Our goal was half of that, or 6. The bottom line is we did not meet that goal. We stand here today at a total of 9. And so we didn't meet the goal. I want to say, though, that some really great things happened this year on the safety front. The Central Safety Committee identified strains and sprains as a focus. It's one of the areas, the most common areas of injury at Des Moines Waterworks, basically overexertion and that kind of thing, people straining themselves. We did a number of things very early in the year before the pandemic started with physical therapists coming in and helping us, and some stretching programs that got initiated. Unfortunately, all of those had to be put on pause during the pandemic. Most of them have been reinitiated, though. People have figured out how to do that in their areas in a socially distant way. And people seem to enjoy it. It's actually a little bit of social interaction, getting a big circle in the garage or in an open area and do a little stretching to kind of be prepared for the rigors of the day. It's an opportunity to see people in the Zoom era where we don't see enough people. But so some positive things did happen. The bottom line, though, is we did not meet that goal. We will continue to focus on safety and try again in the coming year. But that's an update on where we ended the year from a corporate goal perspective. And Diane, I think that would be the end of my comments unless there are questions.
Ted, the only thing I have to add, and it doesn't fit anywhere else, is I, for better or worse, follow the Nextdoor app, which if you're not familiar, is a neighborhood thing in around Des Moines where neighbors can find lost dogs and complain about things. I am always impressed that whenever there is a waterworks issue, Laura Sarcone responds to that thing within minutes, and she's professional and informative and goes deep with the people to solve the problems. It is refreshing to see the way that she handles that social media platform.
Graham, thank you for that feedback. I'm not at all surprised. Frankly, Laura does a great job on a lot of fronts, but all social media is a place where she has really saved us in a number of instances and been right on top of things. So I'll be sure that she hears that, because I don't think that she's on board here today.
My wife reported the same thing. I can't remember if it was that same app or Facebook or elsewhere, but she saw Laura responding to people as well. So kudos.
Appreciate that feedback very much, and I will be sure it's shared.
Ted, I had a question about the EPA issuance of lead pipe rules.
Yes.
My question is whether or not what the impact of the change in administration will be. Do you think there'll be any impact on these rules, getting them issued or not issued as a result of the change?
Specifically related to lead, I don't think there will be any change. I think that there could be a lot of impact on EPA and a lot of impact on rule issuance and more broadly, but specifically related to lead, I think that one is far down the path and it's ready, and COVID just interfered with what they were trying to do. And I expect that it will come out early in the year. That's my guess.
Okay, well, we will await and see what other things they have on their agenda.
Indeed.
For in the new administration. Any questions about contract status spreadsheet or the lien certifications and reversals?
I don't have any. I just want to wish everybody a happy new year.
Yeah.
And I have one other piece, Diane, that I wanted to mention. Because we didn't change committee assignments and we won't meet as a board again, just if we don't mind, in January, just handle the committees and whatever your other assignments are as we have. So if you've been chairing a committee, just chair that in January and we can make the change starting February.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And we'll be into 2021 and we will kiss 2020 goodbye. So everybody stay safe and have a wonderful holiday. Absolutely. With that, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Okay, we're adjourned.
Everyone.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody. Happy New Year.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
New Year.